Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. This is going to be review number 6 or 7 from this brewery if memory serves me correctly, and mainly these guys are known for their kind of sweeter fruity sours, but in recent times they've been doing quite a few New England IPAs and I have to say I've been impressed with the ones that they've put out so far. But it's another one of those that we're going to have a look at today and I've heard that this one is pretty good. So for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Strömstad, which is on the northern part of the Swedish west coast, very close to the Norwegian border, quite a famous little fishing town apparently, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Fermenterarna. So this particular beer is called Dressed for Swedish Summer. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and as I said earlier, this one is a New England hazy IPA. So this beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021, and this is the third New England IPA I've had from them in recent times, and I think fourth overall, if memory serves me correctly. The very first beer that I had from these guys was a New England double IPA, I think. But the last beer that we had was called Keep On Climbing, and that was quite nicely done. But then the one before that, which was simply called IPA, that was really, really good. But I've heard, as I say, that this one is really quite nice. I do have another beer to review from these guys at some stage called the Raspberry Masquerade, and you'll probably see that review quite soon. I think I got that beer in the January 2021 lot, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, that one will be quite nice to go back to the kind of sour roots of this brewery. But yeah, always nice to return to these guys and try some new beers. They are a very solid brewery in my experience, so I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one, and hopefully it turns out to be as good as I've heard it is. So yeah, let's have a go at this then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fermenterarna before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. I do keep an eye on what these guys are releasing, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Fermenterarna then, on to my brewery notes. So Fermenterarna, as I've told you before, was founded by Niklas Aronsson and Anna Claesson, who founded the company together back in 2018. But the brewery can be found in Strömstad, like I mentioned earlier, which is Västra Götaland, very close to the Norwegian border. I heard it's very pretty there, and I do need to go and check it out at some point, and if I do that, I'll need to hit these guys up and see if we can get a kind of meet the brewery segment done. That would be pretty cool. But apparently Niklas's craft beer journey started off when he was in a bar one day and he ordered a beer without really knowing what it was, but this beer turned out to be the Tropic Thunder from Brewery, which I guess should be considered as one of the kind of cult classic Swedish craft beers these days. I think that's the one that really kind of kicked off the whole sour beer scene here in Sweden, come to think of it, and if you do get the chance to try that, I highly recommend that you do. The other iconic beer from Dugges, of course, is the Egypt, or now the Big Egypt as it's known, Big Imperial Stout, lovely stuff, and they're a great brewery incidentally. So yeah, basically Niklas was inspired by trying this Tropic Thunder beer. But Anna, on the other hand, she had long had an interest in things that ferment, and she runs the restaurant Kostas Trädgårdar, and this, there they produce various fermented things like sauerkraut and lots of other stuff actually. But the brewery itself started out with a very small 200-litre brew kit and a few tanks, and then in late 2018 they took a break to expand the company after their beers were received very well at the different festivals they'd attended. These days though, they boast a brand new facility with two 500-litre brew kits and a total tank capacity of around 17,000 litres, and they've been aiming to brew, or they were aiming to brew 50,000 litres over the course of 2019. I wasn't able to find out if they did actually meet that goal, but I'm guessing with the number of beers that they're putting out there now, they must have met that. So my figures might be a little bit out of date there, but they now apparently have the equipment to brew up to 250,000 litres of beer per year. According to Untappd, these guys have produced 95 different kinds of beer as of February 2021 when I'm filming this review for you. And like I said, these guys are known mainly for their kind of nice big fruity sours, and in recent times they've been putting out a few New England IPAs as well. I'd love to see these guys do a West Coast IPA actually and see how that would turn out. But yeah, I've been impressed with the sour beers that I've had from these guys in the past. Like I said, I've got the Raspberry Masquerade to review for you quite soon, and I'm certainly looking forward to that. But I would love to see these guys do, you know, like a West Coast and a black IPA, and you know, something else would be quite interesting as well actually. But yeah, definitely one of the Swedish breweries who I think are up and coming, and it is worth keeping an eye on these guys to see what they're up to, in my opinion. I always look out for what beers are coming out from Fermenterarna. You can look through the Systembolaget list and usually you can recognise the beers from the cans. They are quite distinctive. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fermenterarna for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've released. So yeah, let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself then. So as you can see, this one has a little raccoon just chilling on the front there. And yeah, this is, you know, honestly, this is one thing that I've always found quite strange in Sweden. You know, being from Scotland, I am from a cold country as well, let's just say that. But I've always found, I've been walking around and it's been, you know, quite warm, and I've seen Swedes wrap up in warm clothing very easily, I think, compared to Scottish people. You know, we used to go out when it was cold in like t-shirts and stuff and just not care. I mean, to us, like 10 degrees, you go out in your t-shirt in Scotland. It's kind of like that. So that is, it's kind of, I find a little bit of irony in this name based on my experience in Sweden. You know, dress for Swedish summer, and you know, he's wrapped up in the things. Yeah, the Swedes, I do think, wrap up a little bit easily, to be honest with you, in my experience. But there you can see, there is the Fermenterarna symbol on this one. Incidentally, for those of you who are not Swedish speakers, the name of this brewery literally translates into English as the Fermenters. Yeah, so pretty cool. Bestämt plural form, if you like. Learning that from my Swedish courses, which is great. But yeah, 440 milliliter can. This one, I think, again, I would have paid like 45 Swedish kroners for this, about £4 sterling, €4.50, maybe about $5 American, just to translate that for you. As I said, this was released as part of the Lokala Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget for February of 2021. And hopefully it turns out to be quite nice. The hops in this one, incidentally, are Nelson Sauvin, Simcoe and Idaho 7. So Nelson Sauvin, as we know, gold top in the can as well. Nelson Sauvin, as we know, about 16% alpha acid, a big beast from New Zealand. Lots of kind of soft green, white, grapey notes. You can smell that, incidentally, as soon as you open up the beer. Simcoe, about 12-13% alpha acid, if I remember rightly. American hop, lovely soft passion fruity notes when you put it in New England IPAs. And then Idaho 7, it's got a lovely, very soft, tropical fruity note to it as well. And I'm just going to say, I've only had a little whiff of the aroma out of this beer just from pouring it there, but this smells really damn good actually. So I've got high hopes for this just on the slight whiff that I've had of it. You can see, I just washed this glass before the video as well. Maybe you need to get a new sponge, don't know, that's annoying. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, and as you would expect from a New England IPA, this one's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow colour. If I shine the light through this, I would stick with that and say that this is a kind of nice bright sort of mango juice colour. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to the different fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of. But before the head disappears, it came out to be about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say slightly off-white kind of creamy coloured head there. That's going to fade away though, you can kind of tell. But there are one or two big bubbles still sticking towards the side of the glass, even though I just kind of washed and rinsed the glass out before I sat down to film the review. Don't know what's going on here. But yeah, in terms of the level of haziness of this beer, it's definitely not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. But remember, the level of haze is dependent on the wheat and the oats, and you know, you've got different ratios of these things in there. There's quite a few different directions you can take when it comes to New England IPAs. But yeah, as I said, lovely bright mango juice colour. The colour of your beers is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of the beer. But in the first instance, it depends on exactly what type of malts that you use. So yeah, this one looks very, very nice, I have to say. And it does say this one does contain wheat and oats incidentally. So yeah, in terms of its appearance, nothing particularly surprising, but let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one, and I have to say, I have had a very good impression of that already. Oh, that's quite interesting. Yeah. It actually smells a bit, when you're further away from it, if you're taking a more kind of passive waft of it, it actually smells quite different to what it does if you actually go right into it. Yeah, this is quite interesting, this one for sure. So let's focus on the malt base a bit. I think my nose needs a little bit of time just to kind of adjust to the fruity side of the beer a little bit, actually, because this beer smells as if it's got quite a powerful green component to it, in fairness. So yeah, that's one of the first impressions I'm getting of the aroma. Is it's got quite a big power floral character to it. And I mean, all of these hops in here are, Simcoe's 12, Idaho 7's like 14 if I remember rightly, and then Nelson Sauvin is a 16%, so it's a beast. They're all beasts in fairness, but yeah, big green, big floral components out of this beer. But yeah, on the malty side of things then, for me, the aroma of this beer, it actually, when you sugar it up, it sort of balances itself out a little bit more. If you just let the beer settle, it actually comes across as really quite wheaty and bitey. But then if you sugar the beer up a little bit, you start to get a bit more of the kind of softer white bready malt from the barley side of the beer. But you also get some of the kind of smoother oaty creaminess out of it as well, which is quite interesting. But I'm just wondering from the aroma, is this beer going to be a little bit more kind of hop forward, a little bit more bitter? Could it be? So yeah, the aroma of this one is interesting for sure, actually. So yeah, you do get a wee, I think the malt base in this, it comes across as quite straight shooting. You get a bit of wheaty bitiness, you do get a nice smooth white bready quality, which will be the barley malt coming out of it. And you've also maybe a bit of golden promise. Something telling me in my head that it's golden promise that's in this beer, just from the aroma. But you've also got a nice little bit of smoother oaty quality there. And I do think you can get a little bit of that kind of butter candy Werther's original thing in there, but that's quite minimal. This does come across as a very smooth malt base in a lot of ways, but just with a wee bit of wheaty bitiness at the back. So the malty side of this one is quite interesting, actually. Again, quite straight shooting, maybe a little bit old school if you like, but remember there's lots of different directions you can take these New Englands in. You can be wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, yeasty and farmhousey, sort of more rye orientated and a little bit grainy. They can be kind of more barley malt orientated and soft and bready, and you can also get the quite sweet ones as well, which have got a good brown sugary component. So for me, that's the 6 directions you can take a New England IPA in, but usually they've got a component, they've got components of a couple of those elements. But yeah, the more that I smell of it, the more it does become kind of wheaty and bitey. But like I say, if you sugar the beer up a little bit, it does come across as being a little bit more oaty and creamy and sort of barley malt orientated. So it's an interesting point to make about this beer, definitely. On the hoppy side of things, as I said, this one seems to have a hell of a green component to it. I find this one's got a really kind of big floral aromatic kick to it. There's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there, but the green component for me is really big and really quite floral, actually. But there's a nice little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness in there. So I can really appreciate how that goes together in this one as well. So the green component for me is quite big and floral, which indicates maybe a slightly bigger dosage of early edition hops in the beer. Remember, when it comes to bitterness, it depends primarily on your early edition hops. As you go through the wort boil, over time you get you have a trade-off between bitterness in the early stages and flavour and aroma in the latter stages. And this one does smell as if it might have had. It's either very fresh or it's either very fresh or it's had a little bit more early edition hop to it, so maybe it will turn out to be a bit more bitter. But yeah, I think it's quite powerful in its green component, and that suits the sort of crossover you get between the big powerful floral aromatic note out of this and the bitey wheatiness. That kind of works quite well for this beer, to be honest with you. But like I say, there's a wee bit of a zesty grassiness, which again fits into that whole vibe that the beer has, but the fruitiness is quite interesting on this one. So let's focus on the fruitiness before we crack into the beer. So for me, there's quite a little bit of passion fruit coming out of this one. You can smell a little bit of that more pungent passion fruit, but then Underneath that, you start to get the softer tropical fruits. Simcoe's going to give you a softer passion fruit as well, and the Idaho 7's given, there's definitely a wee bit of an almost, I want to say there's a little touch of like a peachy sharpness in this beer. I definitely get a wee bit of peachiness out of this one, but there's also some soft kind of apricot-y and yeah, there's also a few like soft apricot-y and kind of mango-y like notes to this one as well. So a lot of that going on in here, but you can smell the sort of gooseberry. I find that this beer, you know, Nelson Sauvin would normally give you white and green grapey notes, but to me, it actually comes across as more gooseberry-like in this beer. Enigma from Australia is a little bit like Nelson Sauvin, but it'll give you the more gooseberry notes. And I think, to be honest with you, if I was blind smelling this beer without knowing the hops, I might think it was Enigma rather than Nelson Sauvin, because it just comes across as a little bit more oily, and there is a wee kind of, for some reason I'm getting a wee tiny hint of like a very slight, you know, red currant or something out of this, which is quite interesting. I just get a wee hint of a reddy quality out of this beer as well. So yeah, take a wee bit of time and just enjoy that before you get stuck into it. I think this is a really nice smelling beer, actually. Definitely more bitey than I remember some of the other Fermenterarna beers being, but like I say, it's been a wee while since, it feels like a wee while actually since I've had a Fermenterarna IPA, but maybe I've been having to sample quite a few beers recently because of the stockpile that I have, so maybe it's that, I've maybe just forgotten. But it smells very nice. Take a bit of time to ponder that over, but we're going to taste this beer now and see how we get on. So this one is the Dressed for Swedish Summer New England IPA, 6.5% ABV from Fermenterarna, the fermenters in Strömstad in Västra Götaland, quite close to the Norwegian border on the Swedish west coast. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, just going to say straight away, that's another really solid IPA from these guys. Well done to them. Yeah, it's I do like this one. I mean, the first obviously the first question that goes into my head with this is it as good as the one that's simply called IPA? And it's not far off. It's kind of on the same level as that, I would say. I didn't think the Keep On Climbing for me was good, but it just wasn't quite on the same level as the original IPA. But then again, remember, that was my first IPA in a while from Fermenterarna. So, brain fart with speaking there, but you know, so you have to pay that place in mind when you try a brewery for the first time, or when you try a style from a brewery for the first time. It's maybe just going to strike you and you're going to be like, damn, you know, and that beer is always going to kind of stick in the memory. So you know, that's maybe one of the things. Maybe, you know, maybe I've got this kind of pedestal in my head, if you like, that I would put the Fermenterarna IPAs on. But I will say, you know, regardless, these guys, regardless of that, you've got a very high standard of New England IPA from this brewery. So if this is a style that you enjoy, then this is a brewery you definitely want to check out. And, you know, you're not going to get a bad beer from these guys. You aren't going to get a bad beer from them. So yeah, some of them will be slightly better than others. You know, some of them, some people might disagree with me completely. Beer is very subjective, as I've said in numerous reviews before. You know, some people might like this one better than the original IPA. But you know, regardless, they're very solid in this style based on the 3-4 beers that I've had within this category from them already. So yeah, thumbs up to Fermenterarna once again, and this is another very solid New England, definitely. And you know, the standard in Sweden for this style is very high, with the likes of, you know, 10 Hands, Apex, OO Brewing, Stigberget, Spike as well are doing some really good stuff these days. Brewski have always been good with that style as well. So Fermenterarna are kind of getting up there. They are definitely getting up there with these guys, which is great to see. So yeah, definitely a brewery you want to check out. I do hope that they try a West Coaster as well. It's been really nice over the last while to see the beer scene kind of re-diversifying. There's more black IPAs and sort of West Coasters and stuff. So I hope that Fermenterarna kind of jump on board with that as well and do a few things. I'd be curious to try like a some sort of lager beer from these guys, but on the way that they get the nice breadiness and stuff out of these beers, I'd love to see them do like a Munich Helles. I think that could be an interesting thing for these guys to try, but who knows. We'll see. Maybe they're just kind of focused on the ales and stuff like that rather than the lager beers. But you know, this is really nice. Let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. My first impression is that, again, it does have a wee bit of that kind of bitey note that you're picking up in the nose, but it's nowhere near as kind of pungent, if you like, as the aroma gives you the impression of it going that it's going to be. So let's break down this flavour. When you take the beer in, you do get a nice wee bit of bitiness out of the wheat, and then the whole beer just kind of smoothens out and sort of gives you just a wee bit of creaminess. It's a really nicely executed beer, this one, once again. And that's the thing you always find with Fermenterarna. I think they've got a really nice, it's quite a light mouthfeel, but at the same time it's really smooth and just slightly creamy, and that's what I like about these beers. You always find little trademarks when it comes to different breweries, and I'd argue that that's what Fermenterarna's is. But yeah, on the malty side of things then, let's break this down. So straight away with this beer, you can feel a nice kind of soft, white bready barley malt quality. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you start to get some nice kind of oaty smoothness coming out of the beer, which I really like. I have to say, I do really like that about this one. But yeah, the thing, I do think the wheat does actually start to dominate the malty side of this beer. You can feel the wheat actually on this one comes forward and into that middle third of the palate, which is quite interesting. So on the very kind of base layer of the beer, you can feel that you've got, like, down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel just that slightly more bitey side of the wheat. That kind of goes right down the middle line of your tongue. And you can feel the softer barley malt qualities, the sort of white bready notes just out to the side of that, and on top of that you've got a nice kind of oaty smoothness to the beer for sure. So I really like how I do like how all of that kind of pieces together in this beer. But yeah, I think this one does come across as sort of quite old school as a New England IPA. I've noticed in recent times that there's a lot of sweetness kind of creeping into this style in the Scandinavian, amongst the Scandinavian breweries. This one is quite similar to what you would get from, you know, Amazing Haze, Narangi. It's got that old school kind of breadiness, softness to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely a sort of a more wheaty leaning New England IPA. I don't think there's too much in the way of oats in this beer, to be honest. It feels more barley malt and wheaty leaning, actually, like an old school New England. But if you go to the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there is a wee bit of a more kind of grainy quality to the beer. Like a little bit of a bread crusty thing, but yeah, on the back third of your palate, it's all about the wheat. You can feel that it's thicker, you can feel a bit of bitiness from the wheat as well, and I think that works really well for this one. I really like how all of that pieces together. So yeah, it does have a nice little bit of bite there, and as I say, the wheat just kind of creeps forward into the middle third of the palate as well. To be honest with you, other than that, I wouldn't say there's anything that we really need to say about the malt base. Actually, it's very straight shooting. Actually, I think I remember saying that about the original IPA, the one that we had 2 or 3 videos ago. I think I said the same about it. So yeah, these are actually, you know, if you miss what the New England IPA was like in sort of 2015, 2016 when they were first starting to arrive in Sweden, Fermenterarna are probably a brewery that you should have a look at. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, as always, you get a wee touch of earthiness. As you move further forward from that, you can feel as you reach the kind of front corners of your palate, there's a lot of floral aromaticity kind of comes out of this beer. It's not overly bitter, but you do get a big floral aromaticity out of it. And as you go round the front curve of the palate, there's a nice little bit of a sort of grassy, zesty quality to this beer as well, which I can really appreciate. So yeah, it's interesting. This almost builds a wee bit of dankness the further you go into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, on that front third of your palate, as I always say, that's where you get that nice bubble, that sort of nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. That's where the fruity notes from the hops come out. But yeah, on that border region between front and middle third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of that kind of sort of bread crusty sort of thing again. But then yeah, you can feel the sort of soft white bready note, and a wee bit of wheat actually is forming the basis of that fruity front of the beer. So let's just focus on the actual fruity flavours themselves then. So yeah, when you take this beer in, it does have a wee bit of a more kind of concentrated kind of passion fruity citrus, and that sits there at the back of that front third of your palate. But as you move further forward from there, you can feel the softer side of the Idaho 7 and the Simcoe really coming out. So I think further back it's the Simcoe that's kind of dominating the flavour a little bit, but as you move further forward you get these soft sort of mango-y, apricot-y, papaya type flavours coming out of this one. You can feel there's a wee touch of a peachy sharpness just sitting on top of that as well. That really comes out on the back half of that front third of your palate, but on the kind of front third of your tongue, you do get a wee bit more of the kind of Nelson Sauvin type flavours. It's actually a little bit more oily and gooseberry like, and I actually get a wee bit of a kind of, I want to say there's almost a wee bit of a limey note in this one, to be honest with you. I mean, for me, the Nelson Sauvin is quite obvious on the very front part of your tongue when you've got the liquid, when you have the liquid in your mouth. But when you take that away, it sits there for a little bit, then it fades away, and then the tropical fruit starts to kind of creep forward a little bit. So I think early on, I think the Nelson Sauvin kind of dominates the flavour, but later on the Idaho 7 and the Simcoe sort of just creep out a little bit more in this one. But yeah, for me, I think the other thing I'm noticing about this beer, the more that I drink of it, is you can feel, I think the oats actually start to come out a bit more in the middle third of your palate. You start to get a bit more of a kind of almost dried, powdery, oaty type quality coming out of the beer. So that's definitely an interesting thing to take away from this as well. It does become a little bit drier and a little bit more oaty in its malt base the further that you go into it as well. So yeah, the fruity, the way everything in this beer goes together, I think, is pretty damn nice actually. I like how this, I do like how everything goes together in this beer. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Quite an old school New England, this one. So yeah, if you like Amazing Haze, if you like Narangi, the new Sweden IPA from Opie Gourds as well, then you are going to enjoy this. So I look forward to more of these from Fermenterarna, but like I say, I'd love to see them have a go at a black IPA. A West Coaster as well would be an interesting one. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, this is a kind of, it's straight in the middle of the scale. It's mid-bodied, there's no doubt in my mind about that. It's very smooth and just very easy kind of drinking beer, this one, I would say. Yeah, very smooth, very kind of easy drinking New England actually in my mind. But yeah, some really nice kind of floral aromaticity to this beer. Like I say, it's got a good little bit of a kind of hoppy bitterness, but I wouldn't say it's maybe about it maybe feels as if it's about 35 or 40 IBUs. It feels a little bit more bitter, but I'll say that and I'll be wrong, no doubt. But the malt base, like I say, soft and smooth, not too much in the way of sweetness out of this one, and the fruity notes are quite juicy as well. There's a wee touch of oiliness in the beginning, but then it becomes more kind of soft and juicy in a lot of ways. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think that kind of sums up everything that this beer's about, but another really nice New England IPA from Fermenterarna. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fermenterarna. We will no doubt return to these guys soon. Like I said, I've got the Raspberry Masquerade to review for you, but in the meantime, this one was Dressed for Swedish Summer, 6.5% New England IPA from Fermenterarna in Strömstad on the kind of northern part of the Swedish west coast, very close to the Norwegian border. Check out this brewery if you like a kind of old school New England IPA. Sláinte, skål, cheers, and make sure you check out this brewery and this particular beer.